is here today with us, and we're honored to have him give a legislative update. We're going to do a Q&A style discussion where we ask him some questions, and then if you have any questions afterward, you're more than welcome to shout those out, or we can bring you a mic. But if you all please join me in welcoming Representative Robert Reives.
Right over here by myself?
Yeah, by yourself.
Thank you.
We want you to be the highlight. Yeah.
Yes, it's always worked out well.
All right, so just to get started, and thank you for joining us here today. We really appreciate it. Just to get started, we wanted to get you to provide a background of who you are, where you came from, how long you've represented Chatham County, and any general information that business owners, business leaders may want to know.
Okay, all right. Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody's doing well. Obviously see a lot of familiar faces here. It's always good to see you. I'm Robert Reives. I've been the state representative for Chatham County for the last 10 years. Had the pleasure of representing Sanford at one point with Chatham, Durham with Chatham, now have Randolph with Chatham. It depends on how I do in this election. I probably have another district next year, but I'm a small business owner, which I think is most important to folks here. And I think that my upbringing in Sanford, where I was born, lived 45 years, and being a small business owner really guides how I approach legislation, how I approach what we're doing. And that's why I think my proudest accomplishment has been since I've been in office is really getting a lot of economic development, helping to bring that to Chatham County. And that is a lot of work that takes a lot of hands and a lot of people working together. I think that nothing brings people together, unfortunately, like politics, unfortunately, and money on the other hand. And it's amazing how people can get over their differences when they're all working towards getting some good economic development. So with that, since I've been in 10 years, I've that is what we used to call a lie. Never tried to, ended up in leadership. I've been in leadership of our caucus as deputy for 4 years, and now I've been leader of the caucus for 4 years. And that has been important because, you get to be in places to help see what policy is going to look like. And one of my guiding principles as leader has been ultimately, we're all here on the same place, same planet, in the same state. We got to figure out how to come to compromise and work together. And when we've been most successful is when people have had to sit down and listen to each other. And I think when I've seen the least amount of success in the General Assembly is when we're in circumstances where people don't have to listen to each other. And so that is something I try to concentrate on and try to make things about not always, obviously I'm looking out for what's best for Chatham County, but also I've got to look out what's best for the state as a whole. If I was just looking out for Chatham County, then I'd say that $27.5 billion budget would be best spent here, and I think Michael Smith would say figure out ways to spend it. And in one of the areas we could spend it in would be Dr. Jackson's realm in education, because that has been a real thing. So that is a little bit about me. My small business, I didn't mention that, is I'm an attorney by trade, and so I get to have 2 jobs where I get yelled at all the time. That's been fun. But I've been doing that for 30 years. I did 5 years as a prosecutor, and I've been doing 25 years in private practice, and really enjoy helping people. And both jobs allow me to do a lot of that.
Thank you for that. So these business roundtable sessions are location specific. So we've held these in Siler City and Goldston as well. And what we try to do is focus on something that the community is very in tune with. And one of the challenges here in Pittsboro is workforce development and having enough workforce to fill the small businesses that are here and medium-sized businesses. So I just wanted to get your insight on key initiatives that the legislature is taking a look at to address workforce development strategies, funding for possibly community college or customized training programs, anything in that realm.
Well, I would say that one of the things you've seen is a real belief that we've got to support our community college system. I know we got Dr. Chapman back there, and that's because the community college system, out of all of our systems, is the most flexible and nimble. And so when a company comes in, you see it time and time again. We've especially seen it in our area. I know with Lee County, I know the gentleman that was just here at Sanford Roots, but when in Lee County, I remember watching it happen so well with places like Caterpillar and some of our manufacturing sites where they'd come in and they'd say, hey, look, this is something that we need. And the community college would immediately put together something to make it happen. I remember when we did the VinFast announcement, and this is a completely accurate story. We're up on the dais and everybody's clapping each other on the back, and we're happy and we're great. And I'm coming off and I see Dr. Chapman and I get a hug and I'm just like, it's a great day. She's like, yeah, I need $50 million. Yeah. And I always loved that story because it was true. And what I would give her is, it feels like by the time I finished stepping off the stage, she already had a program set up for VinFast for their training. She had already gotten, was at the Moore Center that was right beside you, and was ready to go. And it's going to be the same thing with Wolfspeed. Wolfspeed gets up and going. It's going to be nice that we've got all these other types of backgrounds in education, but they're going to have specific needs for specific jobs. I've gotten a chance. One of the other things I am is a chair of I've been one of our chairs of our Life Science Caucus in the General Assembly for, I guess I've done that for the last 8 years. And that really gives you an opportunity to see this at work, because you go to a place like Griffles over in Johnson County, where that's all Johnson County Community College is doing, is setting up areas so that Griffles can get immediate training for their folks and continued education for their folks. And so that's one of the things that we've done really well at the General Assembly. Where I think you see the biggest difference of opinion from this point is what it takes to get people into the community college, what it takes to get people into the university system outside of going into the university system. And it's just a sincere policy difference. There are some that feel that you'll be able to fulfill your workforce needs by going in more specialized education with charter schools, private schools, and putting more money into those schools for the K through 12. And there are those of us that believe that you got to do it in public education. I'm more of a bang for your buck person. In how I've grown up is as I always fussed with my father, and I've got a cousin back there that knows my dad real well, and and I always complained to my father. I was just like, if you really wanted to do right by me, you would have been a billionaire by now, and I could wander the world finding myself, but I didn't come up like that. And so what we've had to do is try to figure out what's going to give us the most for the dollar that we're spending. And so, for instance, it was nice when I was growing up. I would have loved for us to buy Corvettes, because I loved Corvettes. And my uncle, who didn't have kids and wasn't married, used to always buy Corvettes. But my father, who was married and did have a child, bought more practical cars because it was more important for him to have a home for me to live in. And that's the same way I see public education. You can go out and spend a whole lot of money for something that gives you a limited return, or you can spend less money in the public education sphere and really identify these great minds and these great ideas. The young lady I was just sitting talking to about the last presentation, we were talking about how great of a program that was. But that comes because somebody has a great idea and they're able to get the education and support and access to help develop that idea. And we don't know who that's coming from. That we can't identify at this point. I'm sure in the future they'll be able to identify and say, hey, this is going to be the next super genius that creates whatever great thing. But right now, we've got to do it the old-fashioned way. We got to give everybody the opportunity and the education and then see how they develop. And that's how you get great people at the community college. That's how you get great people at universities. That's how you get great business people. Because the last thing Lisa Chapman wants to be doing is getting somebody at community college and saying, hey, we've got this program that if you finish this, you'll be making $120,000 a year. And they say, well, I appreciate it, but I need you to teach me how to do math. I need you to teach me how to do English. I need you to teach me some basics that I should have learned K through 6. And that's where we're headed right now with our system. So that is where I think we haven't done as well as a General Assembly, because you've got to have a base point with education, in my mind, to be able to really develop workforce. And the other thing is, beyond a good school system, you gotta have a good healthcare system. You gotta have folks able to focus on getting an education. And so a lot of these things matter, good community, good safe communities, but all these things factor in to be able to give us a good workforce, because ultimately you got to have somewhere people want to live. So one, I want Chatham County residents to be able to enjoy Chatham County development, number one. But the only way that's going to happen is if Chatham County residents can stay here, so they got housing, things of that sort, and want to stay here. Because I think all of us that are now, I'm in my 50s, and I know that a lot of my generation that did leave left because they felt like they didn't have opportunity here. And when I got into office, 60% of Chatham County residents were going outside of Chatham County to go to work. So those are the things we've got to address.
Well, thank you so much for the answer, and also thank you on behalf of the Chamber for being here today, Representative Reeves. So the next question we have is more about the workforce housing and local authority. I know that's a struggle that we're facing here in Chatham County, but it's not just unique to us here. But one thing that we hear all the time is about, how do we get affordable and attainable housing, and how do we get those builders that can offer those types of things? So I guess the question really is balancing the need for affordable housing, or affordable workforce housing with local autonomy is critical. What roles does the General Assembly see for itself in supporting affordable housing initiatives?
Well, I think the reality is we've got to help provide that money. I don't think there's any way that local folks can do it. And I think one of the things that's realistic is this: you can't expect home builders to take a loss. That's not realistic, because none of us will do it in our businesses. And it's always funny, we're good about telling everybody else's business that, well, you guys ought to take one for the team. And then, hey, and that's kind of how I am with home building. I'm just like, nobody went into home building, just for the purpose of losing money. They want to provide homes, they have good hearts, but they want to have the opportunity to make some money. And so if that's true, then the question is, how do we provide that buffer so that people can afford to live in these homes, but at the same time, home builders are able to be here and want to build? Because the other thing that happens is this: if you put some mandate down and just said you're going to have to all build affordable housing, there's nothing else you can do, well, then you don't have those home builders. They can go find somewhere else to build. And so we've got to provide money, and you've seen us do it well at times. You've seen buckets of money. It's just like we just did the opening for Oakview. I guess that was 2 days ago. And, that's a great example of federal and state working together with the private sector and trying to come up with affordable housing for people that they can do something with. But that came because there was money there to help these builders make up that difference. And I think most builders, they'll tell you, it's like, look, if you can help us make up that difference, we're happy to build the housing. And what we've got to recognize about affordable housing and why it's important is because, again, it's hard to run a business if people are having to commute an hour and a half to come to you. I ran into some folks at the polls when I was in Siler City. I think this was Monday. And, wonderful couple, had a beautiful child. And they were talking about they did live in Pittsboro, but now they live in Siler. And then they've moved further out in Siler because they can't afford the housing. And the lucky thing for them is they were able to buy land. And because they were able to buy land, they were able to go ahead and build something that they can stay in. But everybody's not going to have that opportunity because, as they're not making any more land and we're running out of it. And folks have got to have those opportunities to stay because, again, why am I going to live somewhere I can't work if those work opportunities are there? So we as a government have to help provide that money. And we've got to provide it in a way that gives local autonomy. And so an example I would use is, I think this was Davie County where this happened, or Dare County. I said Davie, it's Dare County. So in Dare County, we just had $35 million that was given to Dare County for affordable housing. Now, I think a lot of us would be happy with that. If they said, hey, Chatham County, here's $35 million, you can build some affordable housing. Then comes the fine print. The fine print says only this company can build affordable housing. Then more fine print. In Chatham County, you can't control the zoning. This is what they told Dare County. And so they can build them where they want. They're the only ones that can build it. And if you don't use this company, that money comes back to the state. Well, that's not, this happened. I had the same look when I found it. It was stuck in a budget in 21, which is a whole different discussion about how we do budgets now. It's weird that somebody can write a 700-page document and only be about 5 people writing it. I can't do that. I would go crazy. But But my point is, there are actually a lot of those little projects that have popped up, and that doesn't do us any good. I mean, the last thing I need is for the state to say, well, it's not our fault Chatham County doesn't have affordable housing. We gave you $50 million. And nobody's telling them that it's tied, because who gets blamed for that? And that's local Chatham County folk. So we've got to be serious about addressing the problem. And being serious about addressing the problem is not micromanaging and giving a lot of local control once that money goes. If somebody abuses it and doesn't take care of it, then you know not to give them money again. But you've got to give communities, because communities know what they need. They know what their needs are. They know who they're trying to satisfy. Because when you think, for instance, Siler City, if you're in Siler City, you might want to make that affordable housing most available to the people who work at the hospital, because you've got to have your hospital folk live within a certain distance of the hospital. If you're in Pittsboro, you might want to make that available to law enforcement, to teachers, because you want to have them live in the communities that they're working. So, give some local autonomy.
Thank you for that. That was actually interesting whenever you brought that up. I was part of a project in the eastern part of the state in Bertie County, and they had targeted affordable housing at teachers to address the teacher shortage, and that was a project with the state and Golden Leaf, and it was a really good example of that partnership and how it was able to address a very, very serious need in that portion of the state. Another really important issue, and it goes back to the housing issue as well, is infrastructure. And I think there was a study that DEQ did last year that said between, I think it was Guilford County and Lee County, there's like $2 billion worth of infrastructure needs, water, wastewater mainly, along that 685 corridor. And I just wanted to get your up-to-date insight on what the legislature is pushing for in this area. I know it's always kind of competitive with that money. That pool is only so deep. So just wanted to get your insight on what the local demand and likely outcomes may be from future legislation.
Well, I think the advantage that we've got in Chatham County, so far we've been really blessed when it comes down to being able to get water money and infrastructure money from the state. And we've gotten a ton, and we've gotten enough that I think can fulfill the needs of the companies that have come. And now our big challenge is trying to get the water and infrastructure to fulfill the needs of the residents. And then that is a huge problem. Siler has had an immense challenge with that. And I'm hoping that the Tri-County Water Facility that we just opened up, well, we just broke ground on, not opened up. I don't want to get everybody happy. But, that's going to help to address it. But really what the General Assembly is looking at is regionalization, which I think will be helpful, because you've got people who have excess, and then you've got, those of us who just don't have it. And so, one of the advantages that we've had is being able to build that Chatham-Lee partnership. Lee County had excess. I always remember two stories when it comes down to that, and that was my dad telling me about one of our prior mayors in the 60s when he had opted to build a water system that was 3 times what Lee County needed at the time. And now everybody said you're an idiot, you're crazy, this is insane. And now Sanford's selling that water left and right. And then I remember when I was running for office, a couple of the commissioners sat down and talked to me. Mike Cross, Patrick Barnes both sat down, and they didn't talk to me about, here's what you got to do to win your election. They didn't talk to me about, here are the people that you got to meet. Mike said, I want to sit and talk to you about water, because that's going to be a problem here in Chatham County very soon. And it was so prescient. And we sat there for an hour and a half, and he was talking to me about initiatives that he had pushed. He had talked to me about getting water in Goldston, where I live, and that type of thing. And it was true. That's our biggest problem. And so regionalization is probably going to be the answer that we need, but we've got to see how quickly we can get it done. And so what that comes down to is that at the state level, you got to figure out, again, where do you get your most bang for your buck? And that's unfortunate, but with limited resources, you've got to decide, is it better to put it here in Chatham County because you're going to affect X amount of people and X amount of businesses? Or is it better to put it in Wake? Or is it better to put it, in Bertie? Where is it that we're going to serve the most need? But that is, that's going to require some real objective studying and reasoning. And we could be better sometimes at being objective and reasonable. But that is going to be the big challenge because we've got so many areas that need water. I can't think of any part of the state that is not in a bit of a crisis when it comes to water. And then beyond the normal infrastructure you think of with water, you got to have clean water. Because the last thing you want to do is like, hey, we got great water, can't drink it, don't want to take a shower in it, but it's great water. And so, we've really got to do that. And obviously that's been a huge issue in Pittsboro, but it's also been a different kind of issue on the western side. Whereas Pittsboro has been more about PFAS and those type of chemicals, on the western side it has been just literally trying to make sure the water's clean and usable. So that is something that we've got to continue to focus on and push.